Okay, boys and girls, today we're going to be focusing on how to read and input from the user. Now, all this semester we've been looking and doing everything visually with the graphics, but the GUI. But this time, I'm going to go ahead and show you the alternate way of reading input in from the user on a console. Okay, so everything else up to this point can be done exactly the same. It's just two different types of way of receiving information and showing information. So we're going to actually show the alternative way today of receiving input from the console and reading reading that input and printing that output back out to a console. The first thing you need to do is open a new project. And instead of picking a Windows Form application like we've been doing, you could pick a console application. And then go ahead and name it something more meaningful. I'm just going to leave it as console application 1 right here. And click OK. So far, the same kind of setup that we've been doing before, just slightly different. Once we go into the environment, you'll notice that it's somewhat similar to everything you're doing. And in the main, which is slightly different from what we've been doing in the visual representation, in the main, we're going to declare some variables that we will use in the console application. The first thing I'm going to declare is an int, call it my int, and then I'm going to declare 2 strings. And there we go. You can see I declared an int and 2 strings. And you get a little squiggly line because we haven't used them yet. Now, we're going to print out to the console first of all. And the first way I'm going to do that is going to be console dot write line. Now you could use write or write line. Now we want to print a whole line, so we're going to go ahead and use a write line, open parentheses, close parentheses, and of course end it with a semicolon. Now if I type something in between these parentheses, I could type a string, or I could actually type a literal like 100, and it'll actually print to the console as 100 without putting it in parentheses. This is something that's very interesting in C# because you don't have to exactly put it in quotes. If you have some kind of literal value like 100, it'll actually print 100 to the screen. Very useful. Or something we're more accustomed to, an actual string, with another string in it, using the plus symbol to concat the 2 strings together. Very good. So this will actually print to the screen a string written with another string written. And I use this plus symbol to concat the 2 strings together. Let's do another example. This time I'm going to take in the user input. Just say please enter a string. And the variable I declared up there, my string, I'm going to assign it whatever the user inputs. So we'd use console.writeLine to write out to the console. So readLine should make some sense to you when you read in from the console. And now that it's assigned to a variable, I'm going to go ahead and write it back out to the console so that we could see that it actually performed its duties. And of course I just put the variable name in here, and it'll print out the string that I read in from the user. Now I'm actually going to copy paste this, make a little bit of changes. Copy, paste it. I'm actually going to change it. I'm going to actually enter a digit this time. Enter a digit. And I'm going to use input this time, so I don't use the other one. And inside here, you can remember that we, just like the graphical way, we still have to parse the input because it came in as a string. So int.parse the string, change the variable we want to print out, and there's a way we can read it in a digit. So we read it in just like the string, but this time we're going to parse it using the int.parse like we would do in the graphical way. There's something very interesting. You could format your line as well. So I'll show an example of how to format. Formatting your line. Value here. And the way you do that is you use these little placeholders in C#. Now the 0 represents the first placeholder, and the second value I use a 1 for the next placeholder right there. So let's take a look at that. You notice that this open curly brace, close curly brace with a 0, this is a placeholder for the one value that you want to put here. The second value will have represented by the 1. Okay, so everywhere you want to put the 0 value, you would put the open curly brace and close curly brace, and everywhere you want to put the 1 value, you would represent it by this same way, but just using a 1. So I'm actually going to print out, we use some literals here, 15 and 10, close the statement, and I'll print out 15 and 10 in the places that you put it right here. So let's take a look. Now this time it would be different. Instead of clicking the actual arrow, which is actually just F5 to run your program, we're going to use Control F5, and the reason being is because if you just use regular F5, your console window will come up, and after you enter some values, it'll disappear really fast. So you use actually the Control F5. Well, actually, let's show an example of what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and just hit F5 or the green arrow, whichever one. And if you, we'll just hit the green arrow because you're used to that. And you notice that it says it prints 100, like I told you, from the console.writeLine, and a string is written with another string written. I'm going to enter a string right now, my name. That's very good. And enter a digit, 23. 23. Oops, you just noticed that? It went away really fast, right before I could even print the last one, which is formatting your line. Your line. Value here, second value. Well, that's because we haven't hit Control F5, and that's what we're going to do right now. Let's hit Control F5. Show you the difference. Printing the 100 and a string written with another string. Enter a string. I'm going to enter my name. Shows my name. Enter a digit. Should show my digit. It does. and you notice that the window doesn't go away when I hit Control F5. Formatting your line, value here 15, second value 10. So it put it in the place of the placeholders, your 15 and your 10. Okay. Okay, so let's do something a little bit different now. Now you'll notice that I said the 15 will replace the 0 and the 10 will replace the 1. So that works for everywhere in your code. For instance, what if we wanted to put a 15 right after formatting, just for no reason apparently, but just to test it out? These two 0 representations will represent the 0 value, which is 15. Remember, in programming we start off with 0, we start counting from 0. And the 1 value, which represents by 10. If I go ahead and run this, enter a string, you'll notice that it puts it right where I had the placeholders. This is very good for formatting. Okay, if you want to put it in certain areas for formatting your line. Okay, well, this concludes your small tutorial on reading input in from the user, from the console, and writing input from the writing out to the console with your input, or just hard-coded output to the console. See you in the next video.